Great to be with you. Thank you for spending time with All Israel News. This is the opposition leader, Yair Lapid. You and I have known each other for a few years, but it is a very interesting time to talk to you now as opposition leader at a very interesting moment, both internally here in Israel, but also in the region.
I couldn't agree more to all the entire introduction.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Let's start with the biggest news of the month, last few weeks, and that is the historic peace agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Yes, you're in the opposition, so there may be nuances, or maybe there's big criticism. But how do you see this deal, and what type of context do you see it in? Help our viewers and readers understand your view.
Well, actually, I don't see this as the leader of the opposition, but as an Israeli patriot. And as an Israeli patriot, this is a great move. I feel that this kind of agreements will well do. I think this is something that will do a world of good to the people of Israel, to the people of the Emirates, to the economy of both countries. There are so many things we can work together with. Discussing the COVID-19 period, but also on daily basis. Israel, as you know, is a very innovative country. The Emirates has a smart way of investing, so we can do a lot of things together. So this is just, I have enough opportunities or reasons or in order to criticize this government, which hopefully,
you have availed yourself of those opportunities.
Yes. I want to avoid probably in this conversation, but on this I was just happy. I've been speaking about since 2015 about the necessity of moving into a regional process.
Yes.
In order to make peace. And people have asked me, they said, yeah, but what about Palestinians? What about the peace process with the Palestinians? And I said, listen, people think that if we have made a peace agreement with the Emirates, and hopefully an agreement with Bahrain will follow, maybe other countries, hopefully Saudi Arabia down the road, then people will feel, okay, there's no need to do anything on the Palestinian front. I happen to think the opposite. I think, who do you listen more to? Your friends or your foes? I think that now countries that has become our friends, like the Emirates, with leaders who are as smart as MBZ, is somebody you want to listen to. And somebody that can be very helpful in any future negotiation we might have or not with the Palestinians. So it might be even a good thing in terms of going forward with the Palestinians, but the move itself is fantastic.
That's encouraging. And it's interesting to see how electrified Israelis have been by a deal that we haven't seen in more than a quarter of a century.
I agree. Since the Jordan deal, the last time I thought people so optimistic about the deal. These are not optimistic times.
Yeah.
This is. The virus has made our life a bit gloomy, I guess, and pessimism is all around. So good news is always good.
So on this, when you and I spoke last, one of your concerns, yes, you had talked about we want to make a regional push to build peace treaties with other Arab states, and you were concerned about the annexation move could upend a lot of those opportunities. Obviously, do you believe that annexation or imposing a sovereignty over sections of Judea and Samaria by Israel, is that off the table? Is it been sidelined? Are you against it under any circumstances, or you see it as just a delay until we go deeper into a peace process?
I would differentiate sovereignty from annexation. And the differentiation is annexation is a unilateral thing. In any future agreement, this is something, and it doesn't matter whether Netanyahu is prime minister or I am prime minister. Israel will say, no way on earth. The Jordan Valley is not part of Israel. Ariel is part of Israel. Ma'ale Adomim part of Israel. Gush Etzion part of Israel. All those historic pieces, pieces of land, which are also essential to our security. But this can be part we can get this as part of some sort of a negotiation and some sort of an agreement, which I think is important. We have no interest in ruling 2.9 Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, and we need to separate from them. This is an Israeli interest. I mean, moving
To separate.
forward to separation from the Palestinians under the two-state solution is not something we need to give the world or the Palestinian or the Arab League or anyone as a gift. It's an Israeli interest. We want to separate. We don't want to rule them forever. I don't want my grandchildren to still be in, I don't know, Nablus, because they have no business there. So, and I say this with, of course, some sort of sorrow. Some of those areas are the biblical Israel, but I'm also a realist, and as a realist, I understand there are 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. There are 2.9 million Palestinians in the West Bank. There are about 1 million points, 5, 6, 7, 8 Arab Israelis. This means that between the sea and the Jordan River, there is no Jewish majority. It's about half and half. So we need to separate from them. And during this separation, or if the separation will be conducted the way it should be, we will have, we'll have our sovereignty over those parts of historical biblical Israel that we've discussed, but not before and not in a unilateral manner.
You and I first met several years ago when you were interested in beginning to build some more relationships in the evangelical Christian leadership community. And talk for a moment about why. Why are you interested in building those relationships with evangelicals? It's almost been a monopoly for the prime minister for 25 years, but I'm encouraged to see you and others are saying, listen, evangelicals are important to the state of Israel, not to one particular party. We need to reach out. But I'd love to get your sense of why is that relationship important? And what is it that evangelicals who don't know you yet, but you, of course, are rising in the polls, your party's rising in the polls, what should they know about you, and what might be counterintuitive to them?
Well, first and foremost, these are my brothers and my sisters in terms of we share the same values. We share a way of looking at the world, the Ten Commandments, this obligation to be better people. And there is something that really is important to me as an Israeli citizen and a patriot. It's true that God moves in mysterious ways, but he was not very mysterious about one thing. His obligation to give this land to the Jewish people. And people are trying to hide from this fact, but our evangelical friends are not. They share this with us. My father, who was a Holocaust survivor, came here. He didn't go to New York. He didn't stay in Yugoslavia where he was born. He didn't go to Budapest where his family was from. He came here and he was a complete secular, and he was the head of a secular party here in Israeli politics. But he came here because this is the land God has given us. And if there's one group in the world that sees this exactly as we do, and therefore they are my brothers and my sister, it's the evangelicals. So this is the reason, and we cherish so much in this country. The friendship, the support, the ability to be loud and clear about this support that we get from our friends around the United States and the US. I don't have enough words even to describe it. So it's such a great opportunity through you to just say we're thankful.
Not that many Israeli leaders outside of the prime minister's team tend to say it, though. It's very interesting.
Well,
may your tribe increase is what I'm saying.
Yes, I think
those who proactively look for their relationship.
Not many Israeli leaders are that interested in foreign policies or curious enough to reach out and be able to look for true friends around the world. I think this is part of what I do. I think this is part of the obligation I took to my country. And aside, it's also an enjoyable partnership. I had some lovely, interesting, sometimes even mind-blowing meetings with evangelicals from all around the United States. It was always a joy. It's just so I'm reacting to this.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think I hope that will continue.
Of course it will.
Domestically, the most important issue facing Israel today is the coronavirus pandemic, which seemed to have been taken care of very well, very brilliantly at the beginning, and then things got out of control. Israel's now considered one of, if not the worst country in the world for coronavirus. It's devastating our economy. We got 21% unemployment and no foreign tourists, no Jewish people, no Christian people, nobody else coming in. What's your reaction and what's the way forward?
Okay. I'm giving you a warning signal saying this was the end now of the pleasant part of our conversation, now the unpleasant
Fair
part.
enough, fair enough. Okay. I mean, you are the opposition leader. I have to understand your view.
Israel usually is a unique case. I mean, when you're talking about foreign policy, security, economy, Israel is a unique case. A small country in the Middle East, a Western country in the Middle East. On the coronavirus, on the COVID-19, we're not unique. It's the same virus all over the world. It's the same economy all over the world. So what is the difference between countries who are doing a good job handling the virus, with lower death rate, with lower infection rate, with better economies, and countries who are doing terribly? And there's only one difference: governments. In New Zealand, there is a functional government. In Finland, a 34-year-old female government is doing an unbelievable job. In Germany, Merkel is doing a very good job. And so on. So I think Taiwan, South Korea. Governments are the difference. Here we have now a government, a horrible 36 ministers government, a bureaucratic monster, paralyzed because of inner politics, ran by a prime minister with 3 criminal indictments who's preoccupied with his legal issues instead of dealing with the virus itself. And they did everything wrong, and they still do. What we really need is a much smaller government, a much more coherent government, coherent plans. The answers for the COVID-19 crisis lies within scientists, experts, doctors, economists, the people who understand the reality and has an ability to act accordingly. Instead, we have a prime minister, a substitute prime minister, which is a unique Israeli invention that cannot work, a paritatic government, which is a recipe for a paralyzed government, and people who seem to be careless in so many ways. So if you ask me what this country needs, a different government, because the government is the problem.
Finally, what is your message to tourists? When is this country going to open up and let people come back to the Holy Land that people have dreamed about for centuries, sometimes for their whole lives personally? When do people get to come back?
When we will have a government is doing a good job in handling the virus and the economy. It is not going to happen with this government under these circumstances, unfortunately. As you might have noticed from my previous answers, as an Israeli patriot, when I get to choose between my patriotism and being the leader of the opposition, I will always go for patriotism and say the good thing about my country. Here, I'm telling you, with this government, no water are going to come out of this rock. Hopefully next year, I don't see Israel opening for tourism in the coming month, because a tough winter is ahead of us, and everybody should take care of themselves and their families in God's will.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Yair
Joe.
Lapid.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.